is landed in Leadership and Enlightenment, a podcast where the guests are exceptional humans that have faced their fears to crest into their best selves, growing into a way they can help their communities, creating opportunities, and sharing their secrets and their tips that they learned along the way. Without further ado, here we are, my friends. Have a great time today and enjoy Leadership and Enlightenment. Michael Zappia, as I live and breathe, my brother. This is going to be a fun day and a fun conversation, man. It's been a while.
It's been too long.
Too long. How's your life been lately?
Things have been eventful, interesting, busy.
Yeah, you
exciting.
were mentioning earlier you got something you're working on, dude. But I mean, before I go into that with the audience, I gotta just kind of set the stage a little bit. I'm throwing some incense into this thing.
Oh, nice,
dude.
This will be my favorite part of the podcast. Hearing you throw in whatever you're going to throw in now, so the viewers can hear our experience, where our relationship started.
Well, dude, we met at a place in my life where I've documented actually in these books that I've written recently that it's standing out as a pinnacle of there were two different pathways to choose, one of fear and comfort and one of engagement and learning about myself. And I talk about this in my book, how you challenged me in such a way. I defined you as a marketing god, because when I met you, there was a force that came out of you that I couldn't define at the time. It didn't make sense. I worked with a lot of people in the corporate industry and a lot of leaders that had big titles, but none of them inspired or drove me the way that you did. And I didn't understand at the time why you were in my life. It didn't make sense. But I jumped in with hook, line, and sinker. And I got to tell everybody, if you didn't realize who you're talking to right now, this man, Michael Zappia, is a marketing master. He's an icon in the industry. I worked with him in a company called Hello World way back in the day, where you essentially took it on your shoulders and you built it from the ground up. And I can say I looked out in an audience of hundreds of thousands of people with you and watched how you were able to create a life around yourself from this that didn't exist before it started. And it set me on this path in my journey. And Mike, I can't say enough about how you pushed me into these places in my life where I needed to grow. And I wouldn't be the person I am today if it wasn't for that time you were there. And so I'm always absolutely just taken back by when we look at our lives and we peel back the layers, who was involved, why they were involved, and then what they're doing now. And so I had to bring you back into the audience and let them hear it from you as well and where you've come from. And if you don't mind, man, I mean, start a little bit younger, because you have some great stories about how you kind of catapulted yourself out of the schooling timeframes.
Yeah. And thanks for that, Dean. As I'm listening to you kind of just share your heartfelt sentiments about our experience and where you were in your life, I'm really touched. You might not be able to see it on my face, but I'm touched by that. And I think that's always been my goal in life since I was little, was to inspire, motivate, encourage, empower other people. I grew up in Buffalo, New York, just to give you a little bit of the humble background. Beautiful Italian family in Western New York, South Buffalo, and had a loving mother, father, brother, sister, 8 other brothers and sisters from my father's first marriage. So I came from kind of a blended family early on of 10 brothers and sisters, although I was too young at that time to remember all those other brothers and sisters. And as life went on, I kind of lived with my mother's first 2 children from her first marriage. But from a very young age, Dean, nobody told me you can't. And I think that's what made me who I am from an early age. I remember vividly succeeding in sports. So sports was my thing. I had a passion for soccer when I was really, really young. My mother and father got me into soccer. And I just remember at a very young age flying up and down the field and scoring goal after goal after goal after goal. And without sounding arrogant or egotistical, because I can hardly remember those years, but I felt unstoppable. And because of being a success at soccer, it just kind of set me up for my whole life. And the other thing that really stuck with me from a young age was remembering how the people around me felt when I excelled. And I just loved making my mother proud. I loved making my father proud, my brother, my sister. And so I think from a young age that early beginning in athletics and being a great athlete or a good athlete and excelling just kind of set me up for life. And I felt like I can do anything I put my mind to.
I love that point right there for just a moment, because I've had a couple interviews around this subject, a couple pro athletes, one that played baseball and was in the World Series. And he talked about how he didn't feel that he was ready when he was younger, and that a coach told him, why not him at some point? And then that's, essentially where he started to find that gift in himself, but it wasn't a given. He didn't know it. And then I've also interviewed also entertainers that the first time they got on stage and sang, they like, I knew it. Like this was it. Like there was something that went bing. And that's kind of what you're talking about. Like you got this feeling within you when it hits you like, oh, I get it. If I focus on this, I could achieve something and I can move forward.
Well, what you're directly talking about is what I have been teaching people for years is just one simple word. I'll fast advance the story to answer that question.
Yeah,
You and I were together in a business called Hello World, called VM Direct. I was in my late 20s, early 30s when you and I met. And when we started to create success with that company and we helped that company grow to $50 million in sales in about 18 months. I don't know if you remember
I
what we
do.
actually did, but we did
Yeah,
some magical things together and our lives were changing because of it. It was beautiful, not
it
just
was.
financially, but in many areas of our life. Somebody asked me one day, they said, Michael, what makes you so successful and what makes the other thousands of people in this company where they are? How come you're where you're at and some people are barely succeeding whatsoever? And like you just said, bing, it just hit me. It hit me like a ton of bricks. And it helped me author my first and only book right now at the time, which is called The Belief Quadrant. But it's one word, Dean. It's belief.
Yeah,
I had absolute belief in myself. I had confidence in myself
yeah.
that from a very young age that I can do anything I set my mind to. And quite frankly, who was I to even have that
Right.
confidence?
Yeah.
Fort
I
Wormley,
mean,
Buffalo, New York.
seriously.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm just,
yeah.
but for whatever reason, I'm wired like that. And a lot of times in life, I've been told, man, you're really arrogant, or man, you really need to humble yourself. And I can say this to the audience right now that's listening. It's not arrogance. It's just extreme. I'm like
Right.
that singer that noticed the first
Yep.
time that note came out on stage. I believe, oh, I'm here. I can do
Yeah.
this.
I've arrived.
I've arrived. So,
Yeah.
believe,
And there's an energy behind that. Do you believe there's an energy behind that you don't own, that you're actually also embracing?
yeah, that's a lot deeper question, but
It
yeah.
is, but that's the podcast. Leadership Enlightenment is really realizing like, hey, we're actually like this vessel that's charged by this belief. And when we allow it to work through us, you don't have to worry about the imposter syndrome and things of that nature because you don't own the topic or the language. You are literally a vessel out there as a beacon for others to learn around, Michael. And that's what I reflect back into it. I mean, those are the things we don't see is how we affect others. But your belief in yourself taught me that that was possible, that you actually didn't need anyone else around you if you had that. And then I just had to figure out how to believe in myself and where I was going to go. So I'm like the opposite end of this conversation, but we both ended up in the same place, which is really super cool when you look at it. I found mine later in life. You found yours real early.
Dean, I remember vividly. This is a really, really, I got chills right now thinking about this. It's been over 20 some years since you and I were
Yeah,
engaged in
long
business
time.
together. It's been a long time, but I remember sitting at a bar and grill somewhere in Las Vegas, Nevada. It was the night after we had a presentation at, I think, Jeff's house or maybe your house. I don't remember where the presentation was. You had been coming to meetings consistently for about a month long. We were involved with a home-based business company, and Jeff recruited you through a woman named Charmaine Hornick, who we both love, who are
Yeah,
both near and dear to our heart. Charmaine should be on this podcast because
she should.
she's the reason why we're connected, and I love her for that. She
Yeah,
connected me thousands and thousands of people, and I don't think I've given Charmaine enough credit for being a conduit for me to meeting so many amazing people in this world, especially yourself. But we were at a bar and grill, and you looked at me one night, and it was after a presentation. We were both suited up. We were looking really good. Just did a presentation for 30 or 40 people, whatever that number was, it doesn't matter. I remember you looking at me and you said something, and I'm going to ask you to fill it in because hopefully you remember better than I
sure.
do.
Oh,
But
sure.
you said something to me that just made me take a step back. Now we had been
Yeah. So I wrote about it in my book. It was really that pinnacle moment for me was that night at the bar. We had been in the business probably about 3 or 4 months.
is this
And
in
you're
the
right.
book?
Yeah. Yeah. It's in the
I need
chapter.
a copy of this book.
Oh, you're gonna get it. It'll come out in 2 months because you're
Okay,
you're that
cool.
subject chapter right there. That's when it happened. And I had been coming to these meetings, and I had faked my way into a sales role. Essentially, I was comfortable in my warm market, but I wouldn't step outside of my warm market. I didn't believe in myself that way, and I just wanted to stay in that controlled structure of my ego. And so we had been in the business probably about 3 or 4 months, and things were happening for us just naturally and organically. But I wasn't selling at that time. I really didn't understand what that meant. And I was sitting there with you, And it had hit the spot where I knew the fear was so overwhelming. You were going to corner me and I was going to have to deal with it. And you looked at me, you said, "DeanO, I don't get it. What's the thing, man? You've been to 5 meetings. You now have this huge organization underneath you. You're a leader standing on stage and you're telling me that you still are afraid and you don't get it." And I said, "Yeah, Michael, I can't do it your way, man." I said, it scares the shit out of me." And you looked at me and you go, "DeanO, you got to find your way and you got to set a goal and you have to move through that goal and you can't let it go." And I left that night and I said, "All right, here's my goal. Next Sunday, I'm going to knock on all the neighbors' door and invite them over for a meeting to see what's happening. And this is going to scare the shit out of me, but I'm going to do it." But I waited all week, man. I mean, like I wouldn't do it right away. I played golf that afternoon. On the way home, I'm like, "Hey, I guess I got to do this." I'm talking to myself, like, I got to face this thing that Mike was talking about. And so I went home and I got my daughter and I said, "Honey, come with me, grab a pen and paper. We're going to knock on the neighbors' doors." And she's like, "Why me?" And I'm like, "You're the smartest person in our family." And my hand's shaking so bad I couldn't write a name down. She's like, "All right." So we go to the first door and we knock on the door and this person answers. And I just go with what I considered the Zappia way of doing it. Like, just throw yourself into it, DeanO. And I said, "Hey, I know I look really nervous, but I'm just so excited to invite you to this opportunity that I'm in. I live 3 doors down. If you give my daughter your name and number, I'll send you more information. I want to hold a meeting next week and let you guys know about it." Curiosity solved, interest lost, all the technique, just so that they would say, "Sure." And they gave us the number. I was like blown away. Holy shit. We knocked on 35 doors that day and we got 30 numbers. And that was the day I realized, like, people aren't mean necessarily, and I didn't need to be scared of this interaction. And I jumped into it with both feet. And I got to tell you, I know my life changed from that circumstance. But you were that catalyst that night in the bar when you said to me, "You have to find your way, man, not my way." And that just like split the divide in my head and really put me front forward of like, what is my way? And I don't think I ever really found it back then. I tried real hard. And then I went back to, more of that, 8 to 10 o'clock a night job for the next few years to try and figure out what to make sense out of it all. Michael, it's settled in, man. I've been 5 years into my entrepreneurial journey, and I got to tell you, the structure and bones of what we did is what I put into place here with one more step. I believed in that light within me. And I knew that this was my purpose from that point forward. And I knew I'd been in an exercise once with masters at it, like yourself, and I knew what it looked like. I got afraid of being successful. I didn't know what I would do with it. I wasn't prepared for it. I never thought I had that in me to do that. And so I needed a few years afterwards to figure out, what did that mean to me? And I learned how to invest my money. I learned how to scale, and I learned how to create a business and become a business person. And that's when I became comfortable with wealth. And I'm like, I'm not a problem anymore. I'll take it all on, and I have a lot to do with it and to give to people and to invest into that community. And I'm comfortable now with growing. But at that point, when you and I met, I just didn't see it myself back then. And that's why it's so cherishing to me that we've still maintained our connection over the years, because I know that these things are not mistakes. Before we come to this big rock, we decide on these relationships. We're like the maestro in our own play. We should really enjoy all the actors because they're the ones teaching us how to be who we are.
Yeah. That's powerful, Dean. When you say all that, I just think to myself, you called it fear of success. And then you obviously figured out how to invest money and how to become successful. One of my weaknesses, by the way. We need to talk. That's time for you to mentor me. But the one thing I think about is that still goes back to that word belief. When you fear something, it still boils back down to one thing. It's belief. You don't fear what you know. You don't fear you don't fear the things that you're good at, the things that you're confident in. You only fear the things that you don't have an absolute belief that you can do. And I guess if God gave me one gift, I guess that gift is extreme belief in myself, and it's carried over into everything I've ever done. Now, don't get me wrong. We all doubt ourselves.
Yeah.
Everyone has doubted themselves. There's not a person on the planet that doesn't have that fear and that doubt, especially when you get knocked down.
Yeah.
That's when you find out who you really are. Is you
Yeah.
can come from a place of having absolute belief, but what happens when you get the door slammed in your face? And what happens when the company you just
Yeah.
built, you thought you just set yourself up for life with, then all of a sudden goes out of business? And then you got to start all over again. And then you start questioning whether, did I do that? Was it So I know what it's like to be on both sides of the fence. I've always chosen to just keep charging forward, believing in myself no matter what I'm doing. So
Yeah. Well, I think that was the gift, man. I mean, and I think that that's what we're really talking about when you get into this leadership conversation, is like when you're finding your truth in that gift and you realize, like, hey, this I can make an impact from. And this, look at the spread, right? The multiplicity of those conversations and those learnings from those days and where we are now. And this is where we really can take stock into this idea of the entrepreneurial curve and realizing like it's a journey of maturity. It's not necessarily a journey of income or money. And that's what I've come down to is like there's a lot of people that make a lot of revenue but aren't necessarily balanced or happy in their day in day out adventure. And then there's others that find that place that they really are comfortable in, that they like. Set that thermostat on the wall, whatever you want to use that analogy. Like I know you run at 120, that's your temp. You love that. I like to run around 95. That's kind of my temp. We're a little different in age too. I got another 20 on you, I think, in being 56 now. I'm 56 now.
I'm 51.
Get out of here. I didn't know we were that close in age. That's so cool. That's
The older we
awesome.
get, the
But
closer we are.
yeah, how's that happen? It's coming right back into that place. But dude, that's the serendipity of it. I mean, like there were so many times I think I could have looked at my situation and found a reason that it didn't make sense. But like you said, how do you move through fear? I think that there's a process. You start with identifying it and realizing excuses come very easily and avoid those. But when you move into faith out of fear, it starts to create momentum. And when I first got into any of the businesses that we've talked about, it started with this blind faith of just walk in the desert, man. You're going to get to this place. And by the time you find the water, you realize you can build a boat and it's all going to start making sense. But the losses and the gains, that's the place where I think a lot of people believe the entrepreneurial life is so glamorous. But in the end of the day, you have to accept a loss and a gain in the same momentum. And that you could lose in a second, but gain in a second just as easily because your faith. And that's when you move into this next step I call knowing, like you said. When you develop enough faith and practice where there's a baseline that you keep seeing and achieving and overcoming with your efforts, and you realize like this process is working, then like, oh, I'm in my fifth year. I can actually do a forecast now on what my last years have been. And you can see a knowing built into it through effort and energy. Well, I say that's amazing when you start to see that, but only hold that for 20% and let 80% of that daily magic become really the fuel behind you. Because Mike, like, let's be honest, man, every great story you and I've ever heard, it's always started the same way. It didn't happen exactly the way I expected it
Hmm.
to. So why do we always wake up expecting things to happen? Why not just put the energy of the 12 hours in your day and then live through all of the things that happen and let them be what they are? Because maybe it's a Michael Zappia touching a Dean Fisher 20 years ago that sets you on your path this way. So it may not even be in the idea of you creating revenue. It may just be in this referral marketing idea of maintaining relationships and understanding that something else is working around us and we can enjoy that.
Well, I think relationships is the true currency. I've learned whether you're high and low in life when it comes to your income, every step of the way, relationships are where it's at. And that's what I yearn for. I love these conversations. This is no longer a podcast to me. I don't even realize
No,
that.
no, of course not. Because I got
Yeah.
my next thing I want to say to you is like when I got into this about 3 years ago, I called you and because you're the best that I know. And I said, Michael, I'm out here trying to meet clients. Like, what's your suggestion? He goes, Dino, it's a new game now. You got to find language for everyone. It's not just about that one person anymore. You have to really tune into your audience and realize you're a part of that community now. And that set me on a new path, dude. I created a whole process of referral marketing from that conversation, realizing that I'm not selling when I'm connecting and building relationships. I'm marketing. And when I create that relationship, sales doesn't even come from that relationship. It may come from a referral. And so it needs to be cherished in the idea of how that relationship is developed and the friendship that comes behind that, because it's really not about a need and a fill. It's about investing into people along the way. And that started changing my language of, hey, I'm here, you need me, to hey, I'm here when you need me. And if there's something else I could do for you, hey, you might want to, check in because I've got a lot of friends out there. They could help you too.
Yeah. Years ago, I think this might have been right about when you and I probably stopped working together. I don't know when that happened, but you may have been here this day. And if you were there this day, then please let me know. We were doing a meeting at the Hampton Inn on Tropicana and right off the freeway there, right by
Hmm.
the Las Vegas Raiders Stadium, which is now there. And we were doing meetings there every Thursday and Saturday. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
And the numbers started to really, really grow. We started to pack the house with hundreds of people on a Thursday night and hundreds of people 2 days later on a Saturday morning. It was magical what we were doing
Mhm.
back then. We weren't selling a product. We weren't sharing a new
No,
video technology.
no.
We were simply just connecting with people, and it was a thing of
Yeah,
beauty. Unfortunately or fortunately, however you look at it, I was put in front of the room again. And when you're building an organization, a lot of people want to meet the people that have actually put the initial pieces in to get to where we were. Although certainly at that point in our organization and our business, I didn't need to be on stage anymore. I
yeah,
had leaders like yourself and Charmaine
yeah.
and
It's
oh
true.
man, Dean McQuillan and so many people I can think of that were every bit as good, if not better than me in front of the room. And that was the pure magic, was the beauty of it, was being able
Yeah,
to duplicate yourself and watch that happen. But I was in front of the room and I shared my story and I talked about my beginnings in Buffalo, New York. And, I got into football and then I became a preseason first team All-American football player. So I had this crazy notion that I would play in the National Football League, even though I was a Division III All-American, which is a lower division football player. But I believed in myself. That you put me up against anybody, Notre Dame, Florida State, Alabama. I didn't care who they were. I felt like I was every bit as good as them. And maybe I was wrong, but in my mind, I was right. And that carried me to, an opportunity to play for the Seattle Seahawks in the year 2000. And then I got in
incredible.
incredible physical shape when I was training for football. So it led to fitness modeling and acting and a record deal. And when I share the story now at 51, I almost laugh at my stupid story.
Yeah, right?
And people get mad at me from that. That's not a stupid story, dude. That's an incredible story. Like, look at you.
Yeah,
You tempted fate with pro sports and acting and music, and I'm proud of those facts.
yeah.
I've never really officially succeeded in any of the things I went after in that regard. But I tasted the NFL. I was on the TV show CSI. I had a record deal with Universal Records. I sang a song where Ralph Tresvant from New Edition was my backup singer, and I
I
had a
didn't know
chance
that.
to
That's awesome, bro.
yeah, so you told me earlier to share a little glimpse of my story, so that's the only glimpse
Yeah,
I can share. But as I'm telling that story, I talked about how those three things that I dreamt of from the time I was a kid, they kind of faded away, and not because they disappeared, but because I needed to make money. Here I
mhm,
am in my mid to late 20s, and I'm a starving artist, basically, a starving
yeah,
football player trying to get in the NFL, and no contracts to speak of and no money. I wanted to make money. And I
yeah.
willed all this to happen. I'm going to tell you what happened. I was at the gym. I was a personal trainer because I was fit. People asked me how to get fit like I was. I met a guy by the name of Warren Rosegreen. And if it wasn't for him, you and I aren't on the screen today telling the story 20-something years later. And I'm going to get to a really, really key point that's going to really match up with who you are and what your mission is right now. Because I think we're on the same path, you and I. And you've used that word path multiple times, and it gives me tingles when I hear the word because of what I'm about to share with you. I stood in front of the room and I said, I met a man at a local gym and he walked up to me and he said, man, I like you. And I learned something from him that day. If you ever meet someone you like, tell them simply, I like you. There's nothing wrong with that.
I
Whether it's a
love that.
girl or opposite sex, whatever. He walked up to me, 6'4", black guy from UNLV, basketball player, built like a Greek god himself at the time, a freak of nature athlete, Harlem Globetrotter to boot. And I knew who he was. So when he walked up to me, I was like, why is Warren walking up to me? And he goes, I like you. And I said, thanks, Warren. And he said, no, man. He goes, why I like you? And I said to him, I have no idea. He said, he goes, I watch you every single day in this gym. So every day you're in this gym with multiple clients. They're usually women that are in their 30s or 40s. And I watch the transformation that they go through like this. He goes, one week I'm looking over and you're training a woman who's 20, 30 pounds overweight. And it might be a few months past, but I look over and I'm doing a double take and the woman is fit as can be. And she looks like she could be a model. And I'm just like, how is this guy getting these people in shape so quickly? And Dean, I have a passion for fitness. I have a passion for working out, and I pour that into every client, from diet to sleep to exercise, you name it. And after that, Warren said to me, he goes, no, I really like you. I just appreciate what you do in the gym. And I think all the guys in this gym appreciate what you're doing for the women in the gym. And I kindly just said, thank
That's
you for the
cool.
compliment. I thought it was the coolest compliment. So
Yeah,
if
it is.
someone's listening and I'm teaching, and if you're thinking about prospecting in any
Yeah,
business, cold market, warm market, there ain't
I love
nothing
that.
wrong with complimenting the person in front of you, as long as it's sincere compliments and sincere appreciation.
Yes.
It comes from the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. If you haven't read it, it's a classic. And then he said to me, Mike, can I ask you a question? I said, yeah, sure. He goes, do you love what you do? And I said, yeah. And he said, he kind of checked me because I was giving him the auto response answer. And
Right.
he goes, do you really love what you do? And I said, no. You see, at the time I was a personal trainer, but I didn't want to be stuck in a gym training other people as much as I wanted to help other people. Don't get me wrong. I wanted to be in the NFL. I wanted to be on a stage singing. I wanted to be an actor. And I was at a point in my life where you talked about I had to work the 8 to 10 job. I was at a point in my life where this is just where I was. I had to do this for the time being, and I wasn't happy. And he looked at me and he changed my life in that moment. And he said to me, "Let me ask you a question." I said, "Yeah." He said, "Would you like to meet a friend of mine?" I said, "Who's your friend?" He said, "My friend's a multi-millionaire. He's looking for guys like you and I that want to start a business." And I said to him, "Who would say no to that question?" Whether I said it or I thought it, I'm like, "Who would say no to that question? Yeah, of course I want to meet your friend who's this multi-millionaire." And that night is a night I met a gentleman who introduced me to a man who became my business mentor in this world. His name is Richard Call. I'll always give him credit. He's a mentor
Yeah.
of yours as well.
Yep.
And Richard inspired me so much and motivated me so much. He was a man who made over $100 million in the home-based business industry. And
Yeah.
in that moment, after hearing him speak about a week or so later, I realized what he was doing on that stage was what I wanted to do. He was influencing, inspiring me to be better, to do more, to have more, to be more. Here he was, a man who came from a background of real estate and insurance and all these other jobs and careers he had. And then he found his golden goose and he became wildly successful. And I said, I want to be that guy. Well, let me
Yeah.
go back real quickly because it wasn't just Richard. Richard's a pivotal part of the story, but I give Warren the credit that that everyone like a Warren Rosegreen deserves. He was my path changer. He
Right.
changed my path. So that afternoon in front of those hundreds of people, Dean, if you remember, I said with the microphone in my hand, I said, Warren, it was an epiphany for me. It was an aha moment for me. I said, Warren changed my path. I was a man that was going down a path and I didn't know what I was going to do because all my childhood dreams didn't look like they were going to happen. And then he changed my path and introduced me to a man who would teach me how to be successful in a business that I didn't even really knew existed. And
Yeah.
that's what put me on my path. So the word is Path Changer. It's a book and a concept I've been writing for years. I've shared
Cool.
it with tens of thousands of people in large rooms full of people. It's been my key story of my life that it's
Yeah.
amazing what one person can do by just crossing your path and pointing you in a different direction. And that person
Yeah.
can be your path changer. In that
Yeah.
moment, Dean, I said, I'm not
Yep.
selling video. All I am is a path changer. And if I can be that for lots of people in this world like yourself,
Yep.
then I did
You
my
know,
job, regardless of where I go in life.
and the reason why you were great at it, Michael, is because you took a CEO's approach to it. And this is where I think the disconnect is. And you said, what was the disconnect? A CEO's approach to that mindset would be to keep themselves in a healthy state of mind, grow from within, and realize they were basically displaying an example for others. Where most of the people in this world live from a codependent mindset. They need everybody around them to make them feel better about what they're doing. And that's when you met me. I was very codependent around myself. I needed the people in my life to validate me, and you were not a validator. And that was where the whole idea of it broke in my mind, and I had to learn what I was looking at. So you're so right, man. I mean, like we don't know we're doing that, but that goes back to this idea of accepting like the challenges that come into your lives. So I'm gonna go pretty deep on this one, but it really did affect me, and it was the way that I've now been living my life for 5 years. I had this epiphany one day working behind my computer. And at the time, we were living in an RV between the houses over the pandemic. We were all sucked in, minimalist, trying to make it work over that time, build the business. The commitment was there. I'm putting in the time, putting in the effort, I'm inspiring. But something around me was just not clicking in the way I wanted it or the way I felt it needed to. And I had come out of a career that I was very successful in. I call it the staircase career back then. What I was in and in my mindset was like the rings of a tree. I was trying to be within myself during the process. And so I've got the suggestion. We all get these internal suggestions. I don't know if you get them. I'm sure you do. You can talk to them if you want, but you get a little whisper in your ear, sounds like a grandmother saying, hey, maybe you want to look at it this way. And I'm like, what are you guys talking about? They're like, you're kind of looking at your life right now like you're creating it yourself, and it's your job and your ego and your mind. But the truth is, you're just inspiring and leading. And so, what if you just looked at it like this? The guy at the grocery store today you were talking to that you were so busy when you walked away because you had these calls you didn't even make yet, that conversation with him we had arranged for you was going to be an inspiring time for him to move forward. And you cut it in half because you found yourself so caught up in yourself. What if it's just about being there for everybody that you run into along the path and then realizing the boat or the vehicle is the work you're doing. But the truth, the job, what you're part of is like you said, it's inspiring these opportunities. It's realizing, like, I take that from you. Like, I walk into people's lives and my job is to mirror themselves back to them and hit that heart just for a moment and show them, hey, man, there's a light in there. I don't know if you've seen it in a while, but that's really what's pushing us forward. And when I get that opportunity to do that, boy, in business or in life or in personal settings, it is when I know I'm in the right place at the right time in my life. And so I cherish that thought as I move through my days. And I realize, like, I'm not in control of this. I'm in control of what I allow myself to be invested into. I need to leave these lanes open for these awesome things in life to happen along the way. But I also have to give a lot of respect back to life itself, that it's using me in a way that's pretty magnanimous from where I saw myself as where I was growing up. So these stories to me are so intriguing, Michael, because you've got this thing, I'm without that. And yet we're both in a place in life right now where we're still we find our truths, our why essentially is to inspire and leave that footprint with people as we meet them along the way. And what that leads us to, I think, is the big mystery, is the fun part of it. I don't know if knowing where you're going to end up is really so great. I think the journey along the way is, for me, I think if you get started in the right way, you start to find your balance. You're not going to find a more joyful day than the day you're in. You could get to anywhere you want to get to in the end. You could achieve the Richard Call status, whatever it is. But inside, you're not going to feel any different. Your bank accounts may look different. You might drive a different car, but you're still going to be challenged with these things unless you do that work that allows you to accept, this natural sense of who we are.
I agree, and I think it's a responsibility. The one
Yeah.
thing I would say when you say that moment at the grocery store when you met that guy and you were too busy because you had phone calls you didn't even make yet and you brushed them off, man, that could have been the Warren Rose Green moment for that guy.
Right.
So I used to tell people like you,
I
and I
get the
still
shivers. I get the shivers now.
yeah, I used to teach people like you just my mindset because it was how I was wired. When someone would say to when someone wasn't successful, and it doesn't matter the business, when you're not successful, it means you're not doing the things that you need to do to be successful. It's simple. You're majoring in minor things and you're minoring in major things. These are all concepts that you can learn from any personal development book. Focus on the most important thing. And for me, it was always a responsibility to meet other people and talk to people to become that path changer because that's
Right.
what Warren did for me. So I
Yeah.
used to think to myself when I'm about to meet somebody at Starbucks or wherever I was out, hoping to engage somebody and meet somebody to share my business with, because that's what we're all here to do is share ideas and concepts and
Yeah.
products and services with. That's what business is.
Yeah.
And when I'm in that moment and I have that same battle that a Dean Fisher would have, like, I don't know if I can walk up to the door and knock on my neighbor's door. For me, it was simple. It was, no, I got a responsibility to do that. I have to do that.
Yeah.
I don't give myself an option to not
Right.
prospect somebody for what I'm
Yeah.
involved with,
Yeah.
because if I'm doing that, I'm being selfish.
Well, and you're denying your natural trait, who you are naturally. I validated this with somebody the other day too, because they've seen the same experience. This entertainer, he doesn't fit the mold necessarily what you would expect to see in his genre. But this entertainer has the ability to raise the spirits of people around him in a way that's just insane. It's rap music too. So it's really one of those things where you wouldn't like, really? But we've all seen it. He has this ability, and when they leave, it's the best night of these people's lives. They'll
Yeah.
never forget it. And I saw this happen in Cancun in front of me because I was working the event, so I wasn't part of the experience. So I could stand back and really see it outside the fish tank. I watched what he did, and I realized, like, he's just in his best light. Like, that is light shining through him into those people. That's not him. Something came through him and filled their spirit. And that was what his job was.
Yeah.
The rest of it was just the vehicles, Michael. And you've been doing this your whole life, man. I mean, if today is the day you need to walk off this podcast and realize you have been giving gifts to everybody around you your whole life. It's time for you to start to receive those gifts. You deserve every one of them. And what is it you are doing right now in your life? Because we're getting toward the end of this thing that you want to share with everybody. Because I mean, that gift itself deserves recognition.
Yeah. Right now I find myself I'm really happy right now. I'm glad you asked this because right before you started engaging in that part of the conversation, I had this on my mind. But I'm in a great place right now. I had a heart attack. I almost died almost 3 years ago.
Dude, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I almost died. So
Wow.
so here's what life has a way of just ups and downs and thrown a lot at you. You know, I've made the millions, I've spent the millions, Dean. I've been on the top of the world and financially, I've been on top of the world physically. I've been on top of the world with relationships like you wouldn't believe. And about 3 years ago, it was October 14th, 2022. I was taking a hike here in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I have a beautiful son. It's a chance to kind of bring him into the picture here, but
There it is.
literally, his name is Anzio.
Handsome.
He's
Awesome.
he's the best. 9 years
Awesome.
old, and I live for him. I actually uprooted my whole entire life to be his father. You see, I met his mother. We were living in Vegas at the time, and when we got pregnant, we knew we weren't gonna be a couple. We just weren't that
Mm,
match.
got
And
it.
she got scared like a single mother, and she ran back home to her home city of Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I was stuck in Vegas where I had everything. I had friends,
Mhm.
relationships, businesses, ideas, you name it, but I didn't have him. So enough time away from him made me just uproot my entire life personally and professionally. I moved to Santa Fe, New Mexico. Well, needless to say, it's been a trying time in my life for the past 5 years. A lot of stress, going to a new city, not knowing anybody. I don't know if you've ever been to Santa Fe, but it's just a very small town, and you gotta kinda be in the inside to make it here.
Mm,
It just wasn't for me, but he was for me. So I knew I had to be dad, my number one job. And a lot of stress led to me one day going on a hike, and I dropped to my knees on the trail. I'll never forget the trail, and I know exactly where I had the heart attack. It was on
mm.
a trail called Dorothy Stewart Trail. And I was 48 years old at the time, and I crawled back to the car, and it felt like, Dean, someone was shooting Freon down my throat. So they say heart attack symptoms aren't always like the movies where you clench your chest and, "Ooh,
Right.
my shoulder hurts," or my arm went numb. For me, that wasn't the experience, and because that wasn't the experience, I didn't know what was going on. Crawled back to the car, drove to CVS or Walgreens, bought some antacid because I figured that there's gotta be
Reflux
some
or something.
yeah, acid reflux or something. Well, what happened for the next 7 days, that was probably October 7th when that happened, leading up to October 14th, and for 7 straight days, I kept feeling like someone was shooting Freon down my throat, and I couldn't make any sense of it, and I'm not the guy who goes to the doctor, and thank God I'm
Yeah.
alive, because on October 14th, I dropped to my knees on my kitchen floor in writhing pain in my throat, and I drove myself to the Presbyterian Hospital here in Santa Fe, and within 15 minutes, they're wheeling me into another room, and the guy comes and he hooks up a heparin bag, and I don't know what a heparin bag is at that time, and I look up, I said, "Well, what are you doing there?" And I'm always the comedian at the hospital, just so you know, because I hate hospitals so much that I
Relieves the
try and make a
stress.
joke out of it just to relieve my own
Yeah.
anxiety. And I go, "What's the bag for?" And he says, "Oh, it's a heparin bag." And I said, "What's a heparin bag?" He says to me, "Oh, that's what we give patients who are having heart attacks." So I look at him and said, "Well, then why are you giving it to me?" He said,
Right.
"Oh," he goes, "They didn't tell you?" I'm like, "They didn't tell me what?" Said, "Mr. Zappia, you're having a heart attack right now." It's like, "No." It's the craziest.
Whoa.
I laugh about it now because I'm alive to laugh about it, but to kind of fast advance where I'm trying to go to answer your question about where I am in my life, 3 days later, I'm having open heart surgery. I'll share it to the crowd because it's good for the effect.
Oh, yeah.
They cut my chest in half, and they rewired 3 of the arteries in my heart, and, it was a very surreal moment in my life. But Dean, this
Jeez.
is a powerful message. I had been working so hard since you and I met,
Yeah.
18-hour days every single day. I got away from being the Michael Zappia that people knew who I was in my early to late 20s, lean, incredible shape, athlete,
Yeah. Having
just
fun.
and then I turned into this entrepreneur, and I'm a very all or nothing person, and I
Yeah.
think that lifestyle
Yeah.
led to the heart attack, the stress, the business that fell apart. And anyway,
Yeah.
so where am I at today? I'm 3 years recovered from heart surgery. I feel great. I look as good as ever.
Awesome.
I'm back in the gym, so I'm getting my identity back as a
Good.
bodybuilder, as a fitness model. People might laugh when they hear 51. What do you mean? Oh no, no, I was
No, man. I mean, this is now the time to be it.
yeah.
You're gonna be at the top of the curve there.
So where I'm at right now is I'm providing for my son. I've got a great livelihood. I've got projects, games I've invented. I've got a game called the ZFC, another game called Donkey that I'm passionately engaged in right now. I'm in the car business right now, creating a heck of a career there. Didn't realize you can do so well in the car business. It's not who I am, but
Yeah.
who I am as a path changer. But
Yeah.
I decided back on
Exactly.
July 17 that I'm gonna get healthy, really
Yeah.
healthy. So I'm back in the
Yeah.
gym. I hired a personal trainer. I'm about 15% body fat today. Give me
Awesome.
another 3 to 6 months, I'll be down under
I love
getting
it.
all my health checkups, and I know that the future is very, very bright. I know it's extremely bright.
We are running so many parallels, my friend. We're gonna have to reinvest into this friendship a little more. And I will share that book because you're a pinnacle turning point in my life, and I noted it. All of my mentors are in this book and how they've affected me during the path, because I think that's the strength, is when you can look at your experience and realize that's not really your experience. It's everyone's experience that you're a part of. And I cherish your friendship. I know that I treated you during sometimes in our relationship as a catalyst in my life, or as a kind of like a something you leaned up against to try and fight life through. And you were always there as that mentor for me. And that's another point in this podcast that I want to leave everybody with, is like, sometimes a mentor isn't your best friend. It's somebody willing to do the things to show you your strength. And what I realized after all those years, Michael, is that you mirrored this reflection of myself that I had never seen. And you're mirroring it to me now, and I still realize there's work to be done. And I love that part, because there's never where we're there if you really embrace your mentors. But I feel that that the path has taken me to a place now where I can, wholeheartedly agree with everything you're saying. And now I'll add to that by saying that, you deserve this gift of life. And I think you're going to start to fall into it a lot more now, because you've prioritized outside of this need of winning. And that's where my life changed, is when I let go of having to be the best at what I do to fitting into my role in life, and going from that staircase to the rings of a tree, and realizing I'm always in the right place at the right time, and to invest myself and my family. Like we have to make these decisions. I live out in the middle of nowhere in northern Nevada. We just moved our mother in with us, and she's in her full stage dementia. And who would think at your life in this age, you've got another child you got to work with? But this is life. And I find the more I invest in wholeheartedly into all of my life as my quality of life, not just that life experience, those other things come to me now. The referrals come in my business, the friendships strengthen, the opportunities grow, and it doesn't come from me pushing buttons trying to find them anymore. It came from being there for my mother, or being there for a good friend, like you said, and stepping out of your place and being there for their light to grow. And man, I got to tell you, I see my mirror back to you is, bro, I could see this other story happening. And in a couple years, you're going to go, Dino, you're just not going to believe it. And this is what I'm going to leave the audience with, because this is what I always said to everybody before I introduced them to you. I said, have you ever met a millionaire before they're a millionaire? And everybody would say to me, oh, I know millionaires. And I said, no, that's not what I asked you. Have you ever met a millionaire before they became a millionaire? Because I know one, and he'll be a millionaire in 6 months. And you were. And dude, that's some impressive shit. Let me tell you.
Crazy, Dean.
I can't wait to talk to you, man, when this other stuff blows up for you, brother. I look forward to hearing from you.
Keep in touch. I need to know more about what you're doing and how I can support you, and
I'm going to
maybe
spend
play
some
a
time with
pivotal
you on
role in
that.
that too. Yeah,
I think there's growth in both for us. So
for
I
sure.
look forward to it. Any last words for the audience?
No, I'm just grateful for you. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to be on your platform. The moment you sent me you told me about it months ago that you wanted me to get on the podcast, just happens that we did it today. I guess it
When it's
happened at the
supposed to
right
happen.
time. But I know this has been my calling and will always be my calling, to simply just share my story in the hopes that it reaches and touches somebody, to create maybe that little ounce of belief that they don't have in themselves, to just know that they can do anything they put their mind to. And you know what? My own prospect, I need to be reminded each and every day. I certainly haven't arrived in life. I'm nowhere near where I thought it would be in this world, but I'm 51, and I think this is the beginning of greatness when you get to your early 50s.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we all see you there, wherever this is that you think you're going to be. You're already there in our minds, brother. It's just a matter of time. All right, man.
Amazing.
Have a great afternoon. I
You
can't
too.
wait to catch up with you in the next one.
Let's do it. Thanks,
God
bro.
bless.
Appreciate you. God bless you.
Well, there we go. Another amazing example of the universe working in its magnificent way today. Appreciate you showing up, and look forward to seeing you again at Leadership and Enlightenment.